the course that will help somebody get to this comfortable retirement later in life. It's blueprint, which we absolutely could follow, and a lot of people do. Whoops. Here we go. That is what most people are doing, something that looks like that. And since you can't read, I'll just say it starts with budgeting. There's essential education. It's getting the employer match. It's contributing to health savings accounts. It's IRAs. It's after-tax investing. It's all kinds of things that somebody's doing, following this blueprint through the traditional path to get to wealth or economic independence. Of course, there is a consideration when you start to withdraw from that is how much can you withdraw after you finally made it to retirement. And so what we're looking at here is there have been all kinds of studies that have done, Monte Carlo studies and other things that have said, what is the rate of return that somebody can take out of this big bundle of money? Because most people, what they're doing is they're building up this pile of money as they're working. They stop adding to the pile and they start subtracting from it once they retire. And that's basically a hope that this pile of money doesn't run out before the living runs out. Okay. And so advisors and smart people have gone and looked at all kinds of scenarios where these traditional investments have performed in different ways. And they basically said, this is showing you from 1970 for decades later. I know you can't see that here, but what it shows you, they tried taking an 8% withdrawal rate. This, and you see it blowing up after a few years. 7, 6, 5, 4. 4% was the only amount that they could withdraw to make it through a time period, which was 1970 to 1982. That was actually very similar to what we're experiencing today. So the only withdrawal rate that got past the 70s and 80s and got somebody into this 30-year of retirement lifestyle, dignity and independence, was the 4% withdrawal rate. So that's a common strategy. If you have $4 million set aside, you can pull $40,000 out a year and adjust that for inflation and still be able to feel comfortable pulling it out even if the market's down. And of course, the markets are going to be down. That time period that you couldn't really see, but it shows the lines getting beat up, was a time period that, does any of this look familiar, right? You have that middle row that's maybe top of our minds as agents, that middle row talking about sky-high house prices, the value of the dollar going down, inflation being really high, and the economy having a headache, but all kinds of other things, world political and economic turmoil happening. These are all-time magazine covers from a time period that's reflected in that portfolio getting beat up. It just happens to be ripped from the headlines of today. And so this is something that when you're working with just traditional investments, you have to factor for it, because you don't know what the time period is going to be. Of course, you don't know what the returns are going to look like for you. There's this other example of somebody taking the exact same, and I know you can't see that either, so I'll just explain it real quick. It's taking the exact same withdrawal, having $100,000, taking $5,000 a month or a year, from that, and getting the exact same rate of return, 6.8% is this example. But the column on the left, you actually start out with a beat up period of time, the .com bubble. These are actual returns the S&P did. You go into retirement and your portfolio gets beat up, and so you're withdrawing while it gets beat up, and so it doesn't last. Versus the column on the right, the first few years were good instead of bad. The exact same returns, just in inverse order between these two columns. One of them you made it, the other one you didn't. And that's all stuff that, of course, is out of our hands. That's not stuff that we can control. That environment that we're going to be facing as we ride off into the sunset at retirement as we're building this wealth. Of course, the stock market is an investment vehicle that I personally am a big fan of. This is what it's looked like to own stocks for the last 40 years. So I'm using that same 40-year window of time. Stock market's worth a lot more today than it was 40 years ago. But of course, that's not without a roller coaster ride. Stock market was down 25% this last year. It was down 34% in a month's time when COVID hit. It was down 57% when the housing crisis hit, the Great Recession, 49% with the tech bubble burst. And you don't even notice this little blip happened 36 years ago tomorrow, Black Monday of '87, where the stock market lost 23% of its value in one day's time. So this is a ride that if you can stay on the ride, it gets you there. You can be comfortable. You're setting aside 15% of your income. You have it earning 10%, you stay on the ride. The problem is that most people don't stay on that ride. 10% is what the index is average, the SP 500. Average investors make 5.6%. So again, it's not that it doesn't work, but is there a better way is maybe the question. Is there a way that can get you there quicker, that can get you there with the better sleep, that can help you have confidence that the future will work out? And obviously I'm certainly biased. I think we're all biased in this room as to what real estate can do for somebody. But real estate is that vehicle that can help somebody get ahead, that can help them get there quicker. Not overnight, it takes time still. But here's a couple perspectives. That Gallup poll has been doing surveys for the last 90 years. 90 years they've been asking people all kinds of different topics. For decades now, they've been asking them, what do you view as the best long-term investment? And real estate has been at the top of the list most of the time. Not always. You can't really see the numbers here. That green line up top is real estate. After the Great Recession, gold overtook real estate. This is 2011, 2012 kind of time period on the left-hand side. And it's interesting to see what's happened to real estate after this last year. People's perception of what the best long-term investment is. Real estate's taken a hit. Still at the top of the chart, 38% of surveyors think that real estate's the best way to have money grow for their financial future. But it's interesting to me to see what's happened to gold now in this environment as well. Gold obviously can be a great hedge. It can be a great way to diversify a portfolio. It's not a great way to grow a portfolio, though. If somebody had bought into gold back in 1981, in that time period around the magazine covers and all that turmoil that was happening, that's similar to today, they would have had to hold on to it for about 30 years to get back out of it, just the same price per ounce that they purchased it for. But of course, that dollar would be worth a lot less. But it's interesting what people do, that fear that kicks in when we're in these kind of environments and people starting to wonder. But Warren Buffett, greatest investor ever, he certainly recognizes the value of real estate. I love this quote from him. He said, if anyone is thinking about buying homes, it's probably as attractive an investment as you can make. If I had a way of buying a couple 100,000 single family homes and had a way of managing them, I'd load up on them. So here's the greatest stock investor ever actually saying that real estate and single family rental homes is as good an investment as you can make. Okay. And so what is it that he knows? What is it that the wealthy people know? Why are so many people attracted to real estate? So you may recall this one blueprint of wealth, another blueprint, if you will, the wealth creation and strategies is this right here. The strategy of the wealthy is to buy, borrow, and die. Okay. You guys heard that before? Any thoughts on that? And you know what that means? So buying assets, of course, assets that go up in value over time, assets that pay you a little bit of income along the way, assets that you are dependable, that can be there for you. Real estate is an asset, of course, but there's other assets that can work with us too. But real estate has some unique advantages. The borrowing part, it's dramatic what borrowing can do for somebody, both in growing their portfolio, as well as for saving taxes on it and what it can do for you along the way when you use leverage effectively. And so the buying assets, instead of just going around the monopoly board, collecting that $200 salary, you're actually stopping and buying the home or the hotel or whatever it is along the way. That's when somebody stops on it, they can pay you rent for stopping on it. Borrowing to make that money work harder for you when you're in that stage of life. And then the dying, we can hear more about from Tony and Guy a little bit, some of the tax benefits that are available, but just briefly, incredible legacy planning, tax benefits available, step up in cost basis that's available for peers and for whoever you leave your money to later on. And so this buy, borrow, and die strategy is not a magic elixir that you can take and get to this wealth creation overnight. It is something though that if you follow and expect just kind of natural laws, natural process of things and order and timing of things, you can expect to know that it works out. If you're planting that seed and not pulling it up, of course, to look at the roots, but give it time to grow. If you're not, a question you can ask is when you hear about wealth creation, and you hear a lot of it out there on social media now, if they're advocating for something, can you take what they're saying and apply it to the natural world that we live in? Can you apply it to going to the gym or to other things in life, the law of the harvest or other things? Is what they're saying doesn't follow those natural laws, I'd be hesitant about that. but natural laws, getting started, planting the seed, giving it time, and helping it grow along the way, absolutely can help somebody get to this wealth status, this wealth blueprint that we're talking about. Real estate does have advantages. It does have additional ways that people can benefit from it, that other investments that maybe just grow for the future, or maybe just pay an income, stocks or bonds, are not inherent in those. So real estate, there's so many different ways that people benefit from that, of course. Home going up in value, people paying you income along the way, being able to use that power of leverage, being able to have some inflation protection and other things on it. All of these are ways that people benefit from real estate. A favorite of mine, though, is not so much the features that I have listed there on the left, but the actual, what I call benefits of it on the right there. The hope, the peace of mind, the confidence that it gives somebody that their future can be better is my favorite thing of what I've seen real estate do. So yeah, the company that Kelly mentioned, we've been around for 15 years. We've helped 1,500 people buy 5,000 homes. And a favorite thing, feedback that I hear after somebody's purchased it is that they feel more hopeful for the future. They feel like we're doing something that they know is physical and tangible and will be there to make a bigger impact in their financial future, something that they can depend upon. And so there's a lot of satisfaction that comes from that. So let me just give you an example of what that can look like. So here's a home that one of our clients just went in contract on this last week, actually. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana. You won't see the numbers. I'll just give you some highlights. Here's a $305,000 home. We usually do 3 or 4 bedroom homes, 2 or 3 bath homes. This is a 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath home, brand new build in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's an area of the country where there's about 2.8 times, almost 3 times the population growth. An area of the country where the cost of living has not accelerated as much as it has in other parts of the country. Utah, where I'm from, is very similar to what's happened to Colorado, in that home prices have doubled in the last 10 years' time, and rents haven't kept up. I bought a home in Tennessee a couple of years ago, an investment property. The day I closed on that property, my home in Utah was estimated to be worth about $630,000, and it was projected that it would rent $2,200. I bought a $310,000 home, new build in Tennessee, that rented for $2,100. So that concept of going places where the numbers just work, where homes can cost half perhaps, and rents can be higher, so that this home can do its job and build for your financial future and pay for itself. It works. Doing that in areas where the economy, where the jobs are strong, the population's growing, has worked out really well for our clients. And in this environment, of course, it's a time period where you're not getting a big cash flow for your investment. This home here, somebody's putting down about $97,000 all in, 25% down, fees to close, fees to get help, fees to get appliances for this new build, all that kind of stuff. They're putting $97,000 into this brand new property. And what you won't see here, but you can see later on, or you can get the slide deck to you, is they're getting about $150 a month in positive cash flow for that. And so you got to think to yourself, 150 a month for my 100,000 almost investment, is that worth it? That's certainly on a lot of investors' mind, is that's not enough cash flow. That's not good for me now. I'm going to hold off. However, that of course is just one way that you benefit from owning investment real estate. Like we talked about, behind the scenes, you have other ways that you benefit. The tenant is actually paying off the mortgage for you. On this 30-year note, hypothetical that we show here, you're getting about $180 a month in principal pay down from year one. And after 10 years, it's more like $300 a month because there's less principal that you're being charged interest on. So you're getting principal pay down behind the scenes. You're getting tax savings that we're going to learn more about. You're getting appreciation that doesn't always happen in a straight line. It will go up and down. This last year, home prices are right now about 1% higher than they were a year ago across the nation as a whole. But that's not without it going down in certain markets, 5 to 15%. And so, real estate will go up and down in the short run, of course, but the appreciation always happens eventually. And so what this home can do for somebody isn't so exciting today as it could be for what it would do for them. This is showing a 10-year hypothetical, but what if somebody were to take a different approach to their wealth building? And what if they were to work hard? Maybe they don't have the money now to put that $80,000 to $100,000 down that a lot of people need to buy these kind of homes. But maybe they work hard and they sacrifice and they work extra shifts, or time or whatever they do to save up the money over a year or two's time. And now they can put that money to work and they buy one home outright. And maybe instead of a 30-year note that's only paying them $100, maybe they say, I want to pay this off in 15 years, and they do a 15-year note, or they do a 30-year note and they make accelerated payments. And now they have this one property that for the next 15 years, a tenant is paying off most of it, but not all of it. They start today and maybe they have to pay $300 or $400 in supplemental money out of their pocket to actually make the payment, because they're not focused on what this will do for them today as much as what it would do for them 15 years from now. And so they get started and they get this one property and then they do that again a year or two later. Whatever unique situations are, whatever's possible for somebody. But if they do that, this property's paid off in 15 years. And this property that they purchased for $300,000 today, if it just gets 5% average appreciation, so single family homes across the nation as a whole have averaged 3.5% the last 100 years. But that's a time period where wasn't 30-year notes for all of that time period. There's not as any new land that people can build on now. There's a lot of factors that would make home prices likely to appreciate more in the next 100 years than the last 100 years. But not only that, there's other things right now, like buying in areas of the country where there's more people moving into than out of, so that there's an increase in appreciation because there's that increase in demand. But in 15 years' time, this home could be paid off. And instead of being worth $300,000, it would be worth $600,000. It would double every 14.2 years. Let's round it up to 15. And now you have this home that you could do a cash out refinance for. Let's say you're retiring in 15 years. You could cash out up to 75% of that. And of course, you'd have a payment again, but you now have these hundreds of thousands of dollars that you can use to supplement lifestyle, to pay for retirement. And what if you could do this again every couple of years now, every year and a half or two? You're buying another investment property and you're paying it off in 15 years' time. What it looks like in 15 years' time, you won't see the numbers, so I'll just give them real quick. 5 years into it, you have that same $5 million worth of property. It's not all paid off, but 15 years into it, you have $5 million worth of property. If you just follow this pattern of getting a home now, working and saving and just finding it, scrapping along the way to be able to do it again in the next year and a half or two, doing it again and again. And now after 15 years, you have a $5 million portfolio gross value. One of those homes is paid off, but not all of them. It's going to take another 15 years. But what you can be doing along the way, because of the tax advantages of real estate, is you can cash out. Maybe it's $200,000 that you need to pay the bills for a year or two's time with the property you bought after 15 years that's now paid off. And then 2 years later, you're doing the same thing with the next property. And now you have this perpetual, unlimited, tax-free resource that you can just simply rotate the crop, so to speak, along the way to actually get to that kind of comfortable retirement, the same $120,000 a year retirement I was showing in those charts before that was taking 40 years to get to, but you actually got to with 15 years of dedicated focus time. That's the power of real estate, with or without our help. Just what you guys are surrounded in is powerful for what it can do for you. Not so much today as much as, even though there's motivation for that as well, dramatic what it can do for you for tomorrow. So I wanted to show this reflip of one of our clients that got started 11 years ago, a little bit more about what her experience has been like.
I've been interested in real estate. It's been something that I've tracked and been curious about, but I didn't really know anything on how to get into it. We went in hook, line, and sinker. We were able to buy 6 houses. But sure enough, within 3 years, our houses started to multiply. So we sold one house, refinanced another house, bought 2 houses in Florida. And then over that 10-year period of time, maybe 11, we got up to a total of 18 houses. And it was all from the houses buying other houses. Even in this different market that we're in, we still bought 6 houses, all in 22. When those houses are compounding and helping you, it just, how can that not help it profoundly change your life? We were actually 50 years old when we got started doing this. When you put your money in a 401k or into a mutual fund, you just send it away and somebody else's job to manage it. You don't really have a great relationship with it. But real estate has really taught me a lot about just giving me a financial education. It's just opened up a whole new world of possibility. Once you made the logical decision, you just have to push through that fear. And then doing the first ones scariest. And it's not scary after doing the first one. It's about taking charge and then actually implementing and taking care of things and then sitting back and letting it happen. Because like it does, it sort of is magic. You have to look at all the ways that real estate benefits you financially. And so, you know, certainly there's cash flow from the rents, there's mortgage pay down because the tenant is paying for your mortgage. There are tax advantages, equity grows. And then finally, it's an inflation hedge. I mean, there's 5 ways that real estate is really protecting you in your financial future.
All right. So, nonprofit executive of a small nonprofit, husband's an engineer, always wanted to do real estate, didn't know how to do it, where to get started. This was 11 years ago. It was a different environment, of course, 11 years ago. We were still on the rebound after the Great Recession, very different home prices, interest rates, all kinds of things that were favorable for her, right? That aren't in our environment right now. But I so admire that she got started, even though, you know, it probably looked expensive compared to where it was. Home prices in 2012 were a lot more than they were just a couple of years earlier. They had started to rebound. And so they, you know, still knew that they wanted to do it. They had a nephew who had gotten started with our help investing, and the nephew told her about how they could get started. And so they got started. What they had is a IRA from an old employer, 401k that she previously worked for. They'd gotten beat up. She lost a third of its value in the Great Recession downturn. That she decided to put that into a self-directed IRA to enable her to buy a couple properties that way. And then she did a cash out refinance on her primary residence to get access to additional equity. So that she did get a jump start on this. She did put the resources that were available to her to work. Instead of having what she calls lazy equity just sitting there, she put that equity to work because she was more worried about the financial future than just you know, being out of debt today. I have a friend from elementary school who recently did that. He was focused on paying off his primary residence before he turned 50, got there, and then he realized it was to the neglect of his retirement. And so he knew he needed to do something else for his retirement. And so we helped him buy a couple properties that turned out very well for him over the last couple of years since he's owned them. And so it's facing that fear, she said, and still taking that next step that's helped them get into a very favorable position. And it's gone well beyond what we've helped her do. We've helped them purchase, as she mentioned, 18 homes that they still own 11 of those now. Some of them were bought and sold to help have the assets to buy more. But it's actually opened up her mind as to what's possible. That's one of the favorite things I've heard from her is she just didn't realize what was possible until she got started, until she realized this really does work with a little bit of time. And then she was open to the possibilities beyond that. And so they're now accredited investors and they're doing all kinds of other things with real estate investing as well. But it was because they got started with a simple little single family home. 10 years from now, an investor's not even going to remember what that positive cash flow was that first year. 10 years from now, when they've had some successes and they look at life different and they have some equity built up, and that one home they've been able to cash out, refinance to buy a second home or sell one to buy two, whatever path they go, it's all unique and it's all stuff that we help people with. But 10 years from now, it can look very different if somebody just gets started, of course. And I do want to mention briefly a way that agents can help supplement their own ability to get started with investing in real estate, of course, is to get more commissions, to make more money one way or another. We do have a program that with agents, we either pay out a 25 or 30% commission. When you refer somebody to us, a simple introduction, we take it from there, do all the hand holding to get them to shop and purchase, usually within 2 or 3 months time, and then continue to work with them for years to come, annual reviews, checking in with them on a regular basis, them checking in with us as often as we can be helpful, because 1 property is good, 2 is better, 10 is transformational. And so we have a goal to help people get to 10 properties over time. It may take 10 years, it may take 20. We've helped people 1031 millions to us and they got to it in 6 months time. And so, you know, unique situations and external environments will affect that. But 10 to 15 years from now, it would be typical for a lot of our clients like Kelly, they got started and then got to this portfolio of 10 plus properties that on their way to economic independence. So here's an example of what it looks like if an agent refers just 1 person a quarter, gets that what is typically about $2,500 referral commission for that initial introduction and purchase. But then we take it from there and we help them 4 years later buy another home, their clients, they refer to us, they get paid on that second property. And then a few years after that, they sell one perhaps and buy two more. The agent referred gets paid on those properties. A perpetual income, as long as you retain your agent's license, you will get paid for every one of those clients and circle of influences that already want to invest in real estate, already know it's the best investment out there. Maybe just haven't had a way to do it. That's a way that over 20 years time, just referring one person a quarter, the number here that you can't see is generates about $1.5 million in supplemental income. Side hustles. A lot of us feel like we need something else, something to supplement our income. I have a neighbor that makes $300,000 a year. He's 50 years old and he didn't feel like he was going to make it in retirement. He knew he had to do some kind of side hustle. And so for him, the side hustle was actually investing in real estate. We've now helped him buy a couple of properties. He feels like I'm doing my side hustle. I'm doing something to help me get in a better position. It might be just referring more. Obviously, the fact that you're here developing skills will help open up doors and possibilities that wouldn't have been here. I'm a big believer in that. Is you just keep moving along. There's latent and infinite good that's locked up and hidden for your use that you never would have found, had you not been moving along and tripped upon it or been open to it. And so I so admire that you're here doing that and working towards this, what we expect to be this wealth in this blueprint that can help accelerate is something that is something we've seen from dozens of our clients that we've helped get 180 to 10 properties or more. Many more of them that we are just getting started and have years to go, but they'll get there with time. And so grateful that you let us come in and talk a little bit about that. Admire what you're doing with real estate. It's of course not all just about what you make. It's also what you keep that is so important. And so that's something that we're going to turn it over to Kelly to introduce Tony and Kai to learn a little bit more about tax savings. Yeah, any questions, anything that we can help make sense of? Please.
Earlier, did you say it was 3.5% average appreciation for 100 years?
Yeah, for the last 100 years, 3.5% single family homes average appreciation. That's across the nation as a whole. Right now, there's over half of the US counties where there's more people moving out than into. And so, of course, if you're buying homes in the areas not where they're moving out of, but where they're moving into, you would expect that appreciation to be better. The markets that we've helped people purchase in, we've helped people buy in 10 markets around the country over the last 15 years. Started in Utah, went to Vegas and Phoenix after the Great Recession. We're now helping them buy in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Georgia. And so areas where the migration is moving to, skating to where the puck's going to be, not where it is, that kind of thing would help somebody get a better than 3.5 factors looking appreciation. But yes, that's what it's averaged. Good question. Thanks. I love questions. Anything else?
Tell me about those markets in a little more detail, Mike. I know you guys do a tremendous amount of work analyzing the markets. Let them know kind of what that process is and why you are where you are.
Thanks, Tony. So Tony is not just a presenter, he's also a client, actually. Tony, we first crossed paths a few years ago with Tony and Kai. And he jumped in and we helped him purchase a property. Now we've helped him and his family purchase several properties. He didn't need our help, by the way. He's a very skilled investor. I'll throw this out there in case you don't. Part owner of hundreds of doors of proper investment properties. And so this is an accounting team that gets real estate and gets the tax advantages of real estate. So it should be really advantageous what we're going to hear from him. But yeah, the markets that we help people buy in, we have a multiple step checklist that we go through. And for us, it really is just math. I was talking to an agent down in Orange County, in Newport Beach, who said, what I like about you guys is it's just math. It's not witchcraft. So we're going in and we're analyzing a market. Witchcraft is kind of a funny word, but it's not just hope. It's looking at where is the population growth, which is key. The population is growing because there's good jobs that are paying above average wages so that the tenants can be well established. Good homes, by the way, that home example, this is good quality home in a good neighborhood, but it's in markets around the country where the homes have not been inflated like they have in other areas. There's not as much risk, and we're always trying to mitigate risk. And all of those key macroeconomic kind of factors that we're paying attention to and factoring in as to where we're helping people purchase homes. So we are not helping people buy in our backyard in Utah, in Vegas or Phoenix. And it's not because any of those areas are bad areas. Those have all been great areas to buy after we stopped helping people purchase there. But when the home prices got to be so high and the rents didn't keep up, it was no longer a done for you kind of experience. And that's who our client is. It's somebody who's busy and successful, knows that they need to own real estate, knows that they don't want to take the middle of the night call or fix it themselves. So they own it from a distance. Most of them have never even seen their homes. They're in markets where the numbers just work. That's a big factor for our success. Thanks for the question.
What was the factors you said had the most population and job growth?
Yeah, that's number one. Population growth, it's basic supply and demand, but it's job growth that's driving that population. And so it's more than just how many people moving there. It's what the wages are and the wage increases and all kinds of economic factors. There's actually a big long checklist that we can send out that goes into it, but it's also landlord friendly states. It's areas where when COVID happens, maybe everything gets shut down for a period of time, but then it's opened up again to work normally, where there's still some areas. We work with the lady that's in charge of the RIA for New York City, Manhattan, and there's still tenants in Manhattan that they have been sitting on, sorry, the word skipped my mind, have been paying rents for a few years now. We don't help people invest in areas that don't look at the value that the landlord is bringing to creating the opportunity for somebody to rent a safe home in a good neighborhood, build community. Landlord friendly states are also part of the criteria. Yes, please.
We're all realtors in here and the market's tough.
Yeah.
And getting an opportunity to create that commission that you were sharing. How do you help the folks in this room and online get to their audience and share with them what you can provide?
Thanks, Kelly. So the question is, how do we help agents get this to their circle of influence? What's required of you, as a paraphrase maybe? Well, we hope that you'll look into it, and we want to earn your trust. We don't expect you to trust us just from what you hear today. But look at the track record, look at the hundreds of Google reviews that our clients have said. Look at our track record, where over half of our business comes from repeat business. We don't make a dime unless and until we actually help somebody purchase a property. And so our motivation is helping the client have a good experience and actually do real estate, not just learn about it, but do it. And then they pay us if we help them do it. They pay us an additional $7,000 that they would not have paid if they had done all this on their own. And so that is how we make it. The bulk of our money is that transaction, which is a fee that most people are happy to pay. It's an issue for some, but it's a very small percent because of the value. And it's not just helping them buy in a good market and make it easy to own, but it's helping them optimize it. Andrea talks about the annual reviews we do, helping her recognize where her portfolio is at, what time of day it is, and opportunities to refinance the lower rates, all the things we do to help them have a better than experience that they would have had on their own. All is part of what they're paying us that money for to get started. And then we help them again grow that portfolio, start with one and go to two. So over half of our business comes from repeat business. Look at that history of success that our clients have had. And because we know the value and importance that your friends, family, and circle of influence is. So we are committed to this reflecting well on you when you refer to somebody. But people want to invest. And so once you have those questions answered, spend some time with us, schedule 30 minutes. Then it's as simple as entering a name and contact information, a little bit of background, an online form with no other commitment, no other costs involved than that. Giving us the chance to then pick up that baton and run with it. We'll own it from there. You circle in whenever you want to, but there's no expectation that you're there helping along the way. And there's also additional, for somebody who really wants to get in, additional things that we can do to help market this through social media, email campaigns, and all kinds of other stuff as well. So the short answer to your question is have a conversation with us, get to know us, have a conversation. We want to make it as easy as you can with as much confidence that this will reflect well on you, both because you've helped your clients get to a better place, but also helping yourself get to a better place as well. Building up that residual income that's not part of the agent's business. It's hard to come by in this world. Residual passive income, perpetual income, it can be very helpful for all of our retirements later on. Yes, please.
For us as realtors, and you've got, like, if we partner up with you, you've got like two printer-ups, I guess, if we start using you to send our clients to. You've got marketing stuff that we can use to get out and do, like, even like an online, this last Saturday, we did this online Zoom event.
Yes.
For investors.
Yes.
We could do stuff like that individually, ourselves with marketing that you guys would provide.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we sit on the same side of the table as you, but also as your client. We're very motivated to have your client have a good experience because it improves their life. Have you have a profitable experience because it improves your lives. It also helps us out, obviously, right? We only get paid if and when we help somebody purchase a property. And so we have processes and systems and resources absolutely to help market that and get the word out that an agent's adding an investment arm of their business. Obviously, if you can keep the business yourself, if the numbers work for you, if you work with investors, you're going to do that. But if you're losing business because the numbers don't work or it's just not your thing, then this is a way to retain that, get a part of it now and a whole lot more later, by helping the clients get in a better financial position. So yes, lots of resources to help with that.
You're also not cannibalizing your business because it's out of state properties and you're probably not licensed in those other states, right? So it becomes an opportunity to just generate additional revenue. I'm also a customer with that. I'm a real estate broker in Utah. And I've provided them with, I don't know, 50 probably referrals that they've taken and run with, and I get a kickback, so it's fantastic.
Very good. Thank you. Follow-up questions?
Sorry, commission, not kickback. Kickback has-
Licensed agent, paid through the system. Thanks, Tony. Yeah.
You had mentioned to me a story about a man named Ron Didiak.
Yeah.
Share that story.
Absolutely. So I last talked with Ron's wife a week and a half ago. Ron first came to Done For You 12 years ago when he had picked up his son that had special needs from a train station outside of Chicago, northern Indiana. He was driving home and he heard a commercial, a radio ad back in the day, advertising to get our help with investment real estate. Ron's son, Mike, knew that his dad always wanted to invest in real estate. And so he said, Dad, you should call. But Ron was focused on driving. He wasn't going to write down the number, but his son insisted, Dad, you should call, write down the number. So he wrote down the number on a small piece of paper. It inadvertently fell between the cracks of the seat and the console. 2 weeks later, when his son realized that his dad hadn't called, he got upset with his dad, took him out to the car, found the paper, made him call. At the time, home prices, and again, this is great post-Great Recession time period. He thought home prices were high. He didn't know if it was going to work, but he knew he wanted to try it. So he got started with one property and he thought, I'm going to start with one, and if it works, then I'll do more. And so Ron Didiak, 12 years ago, built out a portfolio. When I first talked with him 4 or 5 years ago, when I joined this company, I asked him the question, what impact has real estate had in your life? And he said, when you think about retirement and think about his son with special needs and what he was going to need once they had passed on. Ron was in his 60s when he got started. He'd retired. He took some of his retirement money and put it to work to get started. But when he thought about retirement and what was going to happen with his special needs son, he used to have nightmares. And he said, now I don't. And so Ron Didiak, this great man, who volunteered for his church, was a high school coach, basketball coach, and history teacher. This great man that was not wealthy in of a lot of the measurements in the world, was actually able to build a portfolio of 11 properties when he passed away this last year. And now his wife and son have these 11 properties that are giving them a level of comfort. They live outside of Boulder, Colorado. Been to their home, visited Ron in the care center, just because I think so highly of him. Love the rapport there before he passed on. And it's just transformational what it's done for him and now his family. It's powerful what real estate can do if we just get started and give it time and be willing to act and be uncomfortable at times. It makes huge impacts. Maybe not today as much. The best time to plant a shade tree, of course, was 20 years ago. But the second best time is today. If we're going to be planting shade for the future, we might as well get started. And so it's just a thrill to help people get started in any way that we can. Anything else before we wrap up?
No.
I think we're transitioning over. Thank you.
Awesome. That was awesome. I'm like Tony. I'm a realtor and a financial advisor. I have talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people about Done For You real estate and referred 52 of them on that were actually ready and available to buy. And actually one of my clients, a realtor in town here, just bought 2 properties. She was on a 1031. She was 6 days from that 45-day window to have to identify her properties, and she was panicked.
Yeah.
Sent them to Done For You real estate. Got both houses selected. I just got my commissions on it. Life is good. So you can really bless people and help people. Now, the next 2 guys that I'm going to introduce, Tony and Kai. I was introduced to them just not even 6 months ago. I think it was just a few months ago. The CEO of Done For You Real Estate, Steve Earl, had talked to me about how he had met these guys and how he was introducing cost segregation into his real estate business. And I said, you know, I've heard about it. I don't know anything about it. I feel quite clueless, but I'm open to listening. Well, I listened and I watched what Steve had put together with his portfolio. He had dropped $320,000 off his gross income for taxes in 2022. And I said, well, that's significant. For a high income earner, that's really significant. So I sat down with these guys. What they do is proactive tax planning. I've been in a reactive mode my whole life. I have taken my numbers and my houses to my tax planner and said, here we are. And he's adjusted it. What these guys do, I switched all of my businesses across to these guys, and I really wasn't very fair about it because I did it last minute. I did it last minute. I had a bunch of 1031s in motion from 2022. And finally, Kai asked me, did you give me your personal stuff? He was really being kind. But a week before it's due, did you give me your personal stuff? And well, no, I don't think I have. So got it all to him. He got them done and he got them filed on Monday, which was amazing. But I was able to, through this segregation idea, drop $70,000 off our income for 2022. And now they're working with me to look at my homes to say, what should you do now for next year, for 2023? So I'm in process of I sold homes, buy homes. I'm still churning. I know interest rates are ridiculous right now, but I'm still in that churn of buying and selling homes because it is making such a difference on my tax bill and it is making such a difference on my growth. So let me give you a little background on Kai and Tony. So they met in college, kind of fun. They both had their masters in accounting and in business administration. After meeting in college, they kind of went different ways. Kai has done taxes for over a decade in various industries, in various states. He started his career out in Vegas in one of the five largest CPA firms. Then worked as a CFO for a group out of Hawaii in the financial education industry. And then he left for a high growth ecom. Yes, a lot of us have done a lot of hopping. He was controller, VP of finance, VP of marketing, head of HR. His whole focus is business through the numbers. And I've loved that in working with these guys because they're really helping me look at it from a whole different perspective. But he took that knowledge and that analysis of the market information and he managed a $20 million Facebook budget. He increased the sales over 30% to 85 million. And then he started his own firm to bring that CFO level expertise, that thinking, that strategy to people like us, to individuals. He married his high school sweetheart, which is fun, and has 3 kids. Now, Tony wasn't telling me about his kids until last night. I had to ask. He is also married with 2 daughters. But Tony is a licensed real estate broker. He's got his master's in accounting and business administration, and he went down the path with KPMG of auditing public and private firms, government agencies, working on mergers, IPOs, divestitures, bankruptcies, kind of the whole ball of wax. Then he moved to a company and did global business consulting, focusing on audit compliance, fraud, enterprise installation, CRM implementations. Then he became the controller of a sports apparel company. Now, this company had 150 stores and was in 22 different states. And he not only became the controller, he then became the VP of finance and then the president of that entity. And then he went to another company, 101 Financial, to launch a product line and grew it to a 7-figure business within a couple of months. And then moved on as the CFO of Harvard Media, triple-digit growth. So he joined Kai in the business, and they really help folks like us creatively and effectively solve problems, prevent future problems, and really have a good strategic vision. So My introduction to Done For You, Steve, thank you. My introduction to EXP, Steve, thank you. And then now my introduction to these guys. That journey has just been amazing, and I just am so glad they're all on my team. So welcome, Kai and Tony.
That's a good introduction.
Best of it.
Tony wrote that, so I didn't know what he was gonna say in that file for me. Appreciate you guys having us here. I really like what Kelly said about business to the numbers. Finance is the only department in a business, right? You have operations, you have marketing, you have all of these different departments. Finance is the only department in business where there's no emotion. Okay, it's strictly through the numbers. Everyone's making these emotional decisions that's going to drive sales, it's going to drive their employees, all of these different things. It's all emotion. Accounting and finance, it's all reactive, right? We wait for the numbers to come through, we analyze, we present the numbers, and we let every other department make decisions based on that. So it's the only thing that we don't use emotion, similar to real estate agents. I mean, you deal with customers and all it is emotion, emotion, emotion. And primary homes, I get emotion, but investment homes, really, there should be no emotion, right? It's what's it going to do for your wealth, and you strip that emotion out. So, thanks for the intro. Just to kind of give you a little bit more, the reason why I started this company, Help Me CFO, is being a CFO with that emotion, dealing with clients and their taxes. Everyone is so stuck on the emotion of having to pay tax. Being scared of the IRS and scared of documents and keeping everything in order. Us being our background in finance, we can help strip that back and bring comfort to the customers, to the clients, and let you know that going through taxes, it's not scary. It's weird because I actually enjoy doing taxes, and that's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah, I have
That's
personality.
weird.
Yeah, I have personality. It's crazy. There's not many tax people that have personalities. But I enjoy it, but it's because I enjoy people. I enjoy helping people in their financial situation and seeing someone smile. And I'm not doing anything different than anyone else, right? Getting you a refund. I'm being compliant, but I'm making you feel comfortable and helping you get organized, and we'll get it filed and we'll move on. So starting this company, we wanted to bring that level of experience, the knowledge to individuals, help you build your wealth, but also tax savings along with it. I want to take a step back a little bit. Everyone, real estate agents, you own your own business, right? You get commissions, 1099, and so you're a business owner. Some people don't feel like they're a business owner because it's just themselves and they get 1099s, but taking advantage of expenses is so important when you have these 1099 commissions. So I want everyone to kind of change their mindset or enhance their mindset of being a business owner and taking advantage of expenses. Monday was the tax deadline. I haven't slept in a long time. So last night, actually, Tony's like, dude, you snore like crazy. And normally after the night of tax deadline, I go and get a hotel by myself, travel for work, and I go and I sleep. I turn the lights off. I don't talk to anyone, and I try to recover, and wake up. I have my coffee, and then I go home to my family. And that's my way of kind of saving my wife from that snoring, which I normally don't snore. So anyways, tax season's fresh, right? We just finished it. I don't want to raise the hands of who filed late or, up to the deadline, but a lot of people filed early because they want their refunds. And the ones that filed late they're either scared, they're unorganized, or they just don't want to pay, right? So the last 2 months, all I've dealt with is people that are unorganized and scared. Okay. You were fairly organized, just took a little bit. So that's one of the best tax planning strategies out there, is being organized. You would not believe how many people miss expenses, real expenses that they paid on their business. They forgot they went to a certain state to a conference, right? Or all of these little types of meetings or referral fees, all of these things that they're not writing down and keeping record of. And then come October 10th, 5 days before the deadline, I'm going through their stuff and I'm like, look, you did 100,000 in commissions and you gave me 6,000 of expense. I get it. Like maybe you just didn't spend a lot of money, but you gotta be missing something. And their records come to find that they had an extra $10,000 of expenses. Well, that's tax savings of 22% tax bracket, right? You're over $2,000 of tax savings just for federal. And that's the power of record keeping. So if you're not doing record keeping, you don't need to get QuickBooks. You can do it through Excel. And I have an easy spreadsheet, it's a template with broken out by month. You can just use the same credit card, okay? Yeah, you don't need to get a business credit card. You don't need to get a business EIN and do all of that. You can, but just get a credit card in your own personal name that you already have and designate it for business, okay?
Everything on that credit card, we're gonna write off, right? So if you're traveling, use that card. When you're filling up for gas, use that card. When you're buying clients coffee, use that card. Designate that card for your business. It doesn't matter if it's in the business name or not, like Kai was saying, it could be a Sky Miles card if you want Sky Miles, right? Whatever card you have, find one and use that one.
And if you get audited, the IRS, what they do is they do samples. They'll pull samples of your expenses and say, give me proof of this, this, and this. If you can prove that your credit card, your bank statements are all 100% business use based on that sample, they check it off and they move on. They don't look at everything. It's all based on samples. So if you can stay organized with your finances, I love, and this might sound weird, I love using my personal card for personal use. I don't like being like, well, I'm going to try and expense this and write this off for my family. I have maybe bought dinner for my wife twice on my business credit card. And it's because she's generally not doing business at all with me. And I don't care about that little expense of the 10, 20, 30, $40 that I created with her. It's not really benefiting me tax-wise. It's creating a little bit more exposure that I don't necessarily need. And I feel accomplished as a business owner that I'm able to use my personal money and feel good about spending my personal money on my family. And so I love using that personal credit card. It's a little bit different. You know, everyone's trying to write things off, but for me, I gain satisfaction of I can take care of my family with my personal money that I earned in my personal business. Okay. So if you can start to create these different mindsets, it's going to help you keep track and keep order of your business activities. Okay. And then from there, you can start getting a little bit more aggressive with where you're looking at expenses and how you're spending money. Okay.
Can we jump into that real quick?
Yeah.
Give them the example about the tractor guy.
Oh. So I have a guy that does tractors,
Heavy equipment.
heavy equipment for he does rentals. And on his bank statement or his credit card statement, he had Victoria's Secret on there. How many people are shopping that rent big tractors shop at Victoria's Secret? Right? That's going to get flagged by the IRS.
Girlfriend.
What's that? Right? Yes, right. So the IRS looks at expenses as ordinary and necessary. Is it ordinary for the business? No, that is not ordinary. Victoria's Secret is not ordinary. Is it necessary? Yes, it was. Okay. So they look at the two, that's the test, ordinary and necessary. How is that necessary? The IRS, they can't tell you how you operate your business. So that's why they only look at the ordinary side of it. And then you have to prove the necessary side and why it works for you. Okay. It was necessary because he took pictures with models on his tractors for advertising. So he would buy them
A calendar.
outfits, right? And that's how he was attracting these, social medias, whatever.
I was
But-
waiting for you to say it was his secretary.
Right, yes. No, it is actually a little bit more business-like than that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Then he had a calendar. His sales increased by about 30% by giving out these calendars to his clients.
And that passes any IRS audit. So however you operate your business as your business owner, do it, okay? Whatever it's gonna take. I mean, people that I have another client that sold alarms, knocked on doors, and they shop at Home Depot, which you're not really shopping at Home Depot for alarm sales. But his little niche was he would go buy the little garden gnomes, and any garden gnome that he saw in someone's yard, he would walk up and talk conversations of it. He would give them a garden gnome, and that's how he gets them to come outside of their house. And that's one of the sales tactics is take them out, walk them around, talk about their yard, give him a garden gnome, plant it there, and then he would sell. And because of that, he's creating business opportunities that got him some sales. So for you guys as real estate agents, think about how you're operating your business and start creating business opportunities. That's one of the best tax saving strategies, is actually creating some personal expenses, some outside of the box opportunities on how you're creating business and able to expense that and write it off.
Legitimizing personal expenses,
Yeah.
right? You gotta make sure they're legit, but finding ways that is impacting your business. It already is in most cases. You just gotta legitimize that and structure that and formalize that.
So that's a lot of, I kind of wanted to dive into that since tax is so fresh, right? We just finished the tax season. Maybe some of you just finished your own taxes. And thinking back on your own situation, how can you do better for this next year? Doing taxes for 12 years or so, I filed about 4,000 federal returns. When you look at state, probably a total of 10,000 plus, I don't know. And it is so reactive. And that's what Kelly brought up. April comes, we file your taxes, October comes, we file your taxes. I can't do anything as far as tax savings, tax strategy is concerned. And then I throw little nuggets out. Next year comes and I say, how was it? And they say, I did nothing, I don't remember. And they're in the same tax situation year over year over year. And that's probably a lot of similar situations that you guys have seen. And so starting this company, it's how can we be proactive instead of reactive? Let's work throughout the year and create some opportunities. We do quarterly phone calls with all of our clients. We act as your personal CFO. And if you want to get on in that quarterly call, how's your income changed? Has commissions increased? Has commissions decreased? What's your situation like now? Have you bought that rental property that we told you about? Have you got that cost segregation done that we told you about? And quarterly gives clients enough time to think and react. Monthly is too short because everyone's busy. Giving you 3 months gives you time to react, right? So touching points 4 times a year, we found is a great opportunity for you to start working through your tax savings as far as planning and getting that peace of mind, that comfort. If you're working throughout the year, tax season comes, it's a piece of cake for me because you're organized, because I helped you get organized. Your strategies are in line with what we had talked about. And now when it's time to do the taxes, everything is already there, ready to go. And you already know what your tax liability is going to be because we'll give you an estimate at the end of the year. So you have a good 3, 4, 5 months of runway before you got to pay in April. So you can understand, I got to get that one house sale because I got to cover my tax bill of 30 grand, right? But having that peace of mind, knowing that you're going to owe X amount of tax 4 or 5 months in advance is unreal. And that's why everybody waits till October, because they don't know what their tax is going to be and they're scared. And they're like, oh, I got to make more money before I even file my taxes because I don't even know what that's going to be, right? The IRS doesn't wait. The payment is due April 15th, and then it accrues interest 1% a month, 0.5% for penalties, 0.5% for interest. So 1% a month. And people are thinking, well, if I pay by October, well, you still got 6% of interest and penalties tacked on from the payment. So sure, you can make more money than that 6% possibly in that 6-month time. So I'm not saying you have to make that estimated payment, but if you knew 6 months before April what your tax due is, now you got a lot more runway to figure out your finances. So that's the 2022. I can tell you I've not looked at 2023 rules. I could care less right now. I will look in November, give me a week or two to recover. But 2022 taxes are done. Hopefully everyone here is finished. Whether you do it yourself or you have somebody else do it for you. Planning, proactive, all of that is so important in the tax world. It gives you that peace of mind to move forward and not be scared of that tax deadline. That's 2022. I want to jump into 20. Oh, you got a question?
Question that come across online is filing in April or waiting until October minimize potential for
Great question. So the question was, if you file in April, because that's the actual tax filing deadline, or extend and file in October, Does it create any exposure or audit risk by extending and filing late? I can tell you no. I have no experience, to my knowledge, to anyone else in any firm, that it created a higher risk or a higher chance of getting audited if you filed late. I file my taxes after I file everybody else's. I can tell you this year I did not, because I filed up till about a minute before the cutoff. So I filed mine a couple of days early, but I always file mine late. And it's only because I want to make sure I take care of everyone else, and I feel like I'm not doing my clients right by doing stuff for myself first. So I'll do my tax calcs, I'll do my estimates, I have a peace of mind, I understand where my tax situation is going to be, so I don't really care about when I file. But I actually try to hold off and not file until I get everyone else's done.
Let's talk structure.
Okay.
You want to do that after? I'll do
Yeah,
that.
we'll do that after. Let's let you talk a little bit.
perfect.
So that was
Thanks,
that was 2022 stuff, okay? Now we have 2 months left. I wanted to do this closer to Thanksgiving. And Kelly was like, hey, can we actually do this? I was like, right after the deadline, but this helps you guys plan, right? 2.5 months of being able to understand what you need to do before the end of the year to create some tax strategies, some savings. That's a huge benefit to you. So, you know, we wanted to respect Kelly and your guys' time, so we wanted to come out. So let's dive into 2023. I'll let Tony talk a little bit about the real estate investment side and the strategies that you can gain through real estate. And then I'll move into some other tax strategies after we discuss the real estate in whole. And then we can wrap up.
You got some naps.
Stand here, not working.
Yeah. All right. I know that there's a lot of people online. For the group here, does anybody have rental properties? Okay, perfect. So let's talk about rental properties. Mike was talking about the ways you make money in real estate. One is cash flow, right? That's just rents exceeding expenses. One is appreciation, that's the property value increasing. One is debt pay down, that's using leverage and having somebody pay mortgage payments for you, and that increases your equity every time a payment's made. And then the fourth way is depreciation. I kind of teed us up for this, so I appreciate that. I'm going to use a real example that I have. Okay, so I recently bought a townhouse, and it does not cash flow. It cost me about $2,000 a month.
Airbnb.
Yeah, it's an Airbnb in Southern Utah. So I got it under contract about 2 years ago. It was a brand new build. Took them 14 months to build it. When I got it under contract, it was they said it was going to cost about 350 grand. And I was like, okay, 350 grand, I'll make it work. And then as it got closer, it went from 350. Yeah, it started climbing on me a little. It got to 400, and I was like, oh, okay, see what you guys are doing now. And then 2 weeks before closing, they told me it was going to be 440. I said, oh, come on now. They said, all right, 435. And I said, all right, now you're treating me right. So I closed it at 435, and I am negative cash flow $2,000 every month. The question is that a good investment?
Depends on what it's going on.
Yes, perfect answer. It depends. So let me give you some more information. The appraisal came in at 580. One of the townhouses sold for 580 right before I went to get my loan. So I am $0 down on this property. So fantastic, 0 down. I also did a cost segregation. So a cost segregation, the way the IRS views real estate is it is what is necessary to run that business. So just like any equipment in a business, you can depreciate those capital expenses. With real estate, you cannot depreciate the land. You can only depreciate the building and the structure, and that's over 27.5 years.
For residential, 39 years for commercial.
So in the example that we're talking about, I paid 435. We take off the land. I use as a number for land that's about 20%. That's pretty consistent in the industry. Depending on state, it may be a little bit different, but everybody allocates about 20% of the purchase price to land. Okay, so that's $87,000. So that leaves me with about 300 and I don't want to do math right now. All right. Anyway, that puts me in there. You divide the remainder by 27 and a half, and that gives us $12,500 every year that I get to depreciate that property for the next 27 and a half years. Right? So what a cost segregation does is it breaks out all of the different components of the property. So lighting has a different useful life than the flooring, than the walls, than the appliances. Everything has an IRS determined useful life. And anything that is a useful life of 15 years or less, we can accelerate. It's called accelerated depreciation. So the cost segregation goes through and breaks out all of these different components.
And to give you an idea, 15 years or less is anything except for the structure. Structure is 27 and a half years. Everything else is really deemed 15 or less.
Okay. So now I did that cost segregation, and instead of taking that $12,000 of depreciation that we were just talking about, I got $130,000 of depreciation in year one. Okay. That means that going forward, that reduces whatever I can depreciate over the remainder, which is a little over 200K that I depreciate the next 27 and a half years. So instead of taking 12 every year, I took 130 year one and like $6,000 thereafter. Okay. So I got $150,000 of equity right out of the gate. I was $0 down. So that's a pretty good return. And then I got $130,000 of depreciation to offset my other income. So that property, even though it cost me $2,000 a year, I'll pay that because it already made me a ton of money. Right. So looking at that and saying, all right, what is it that we're trying to accomplish, and having a holistic view of what your goals are and making sure that those investments or expectations align with reality is the biggest piece of investing, in my opinion. So then if you know what to expect, you can build a plan around that expectation. And for me, this was ideally, I was hoping to be closer to a break even, but I knew that even if I never broke even on this property, between the depreciation and the appreciation, I was going to be just fine. So knowing how you make money in real estate is one thing, and the properties that I bought through done through you real estate, I've actually cash flow much better on, because that's kind of the markets that they attribute and focus on. This property, my brother has some kids that play sports, and this is right next to the sports complex that they usually play at 4 or 5 times a year. So he uses the house all the time. So there was a lot of other decisions in making this. Part of it was emotional, not just by the numbers, but what we like to do is we like to quantify the emotion, right? And that's where that cash flow piece really came in, is Kai and I talked about it and quantifying that, hey, even if it doesn't cash flow, is it still worth it? And the answer was yes.
Can I jump in real fast? I kind of want to go into that a little bit on the comparison of tax situations. What's your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? We help you put together and give you an idea of where you want to be. And we build tax strategy and structure to get you there. And can we get you there fast? Great. But can we create tax savings while you're doing that along the path? That's our goal. I had two clients, police officers, W-2 employee earners. They didn't have anything else. They both had the exact same salary. They started the same time. They moved up the ranks the same, like to the penny, exact same W-2s. One of them was single. The other one was married with like 6 kids. Okay. One of them got a refund of $6,000. One of them owed $6,000. And the one that owed $6,000 was mad at me because they thought I did something wrong. But their tax situation was very different because they had child tax credits, right? They were married. All of these different things that affected their tax brackets, the different credits they received. They probably withheld a little bit more in their taxes when in their daily paychecks or regular paychecks. So don't compare yourself to others when you look at your investment strategies and your tax strategies and how it affects you, because your tax bracket may be a lot different than someone else's tax bracket. And a lot of people, and you see online people with the e-commerce stuff, and I'll bring this up because I did that for a little bit. You see people saying, I made $3,000 today, and then tomorrow, yesterday I did 5,000. And they're saying how much money they made every single day. But they also spent in product and ad spend probably more than what they made that day. But they're just saying the type of revenue that they made. So it may show that they made 50, 100, $1 million in sales. They don't say how much they spent. So while you're thinking they might be in the highest tax bracket and they didn't pay anything in tax, right? When they're like, oh, I didn't pay anything in tax, I made this much money, all these strategies out there. There's a great chance that they also spent a whole lot of money to make that. And their tax bracket is in the 10 or 12%. They're down under 100,000 and they don't make that much money. So don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. That's going to help you with your strategy, with your plan. Is if you let someone else sway you to buy an Airbnb because it's sexy, and you see someone saying you can make a lot of money, Tony makes no money. He just saved on the down payment, so he's happy to spread that out over the next 20 years, and that's what.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah,
That hurt a little.
right. But people don't talk about that stuff. Once you can feel comfortable in your own investing and tax strategies, and you don't let anything sway you, sure, you can go down some paths. But if you have your end goal in sight, I could care less about anyone's portfolio here. Like it doesn't bother me at all. And it doesn't make me want to go buy an Airbnb in Southern Utah because of that opportunity that he had. I missed it, but I don't care because that's not my plan.
He still uses the place all the time. I don't charge her anything. So we got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, whatever. So anyways, as you look into your investment strategies and your tax strategies, focus on yourself, understand who you are, take a step back and understand where you're trying to go. Create that peace within yourself of your financial future. And then that path is just going to open up wide for you.
So the reason that I was able to take additional depreciation outside of just that 12,000 that we were kind of starting with is because I am a real estate agent and I'm a real estate investor. Okay, by being a real estate agent, you qualify. There's some other things that need to happen, but it's the biggest piece of qualifying as a materially participating real estate professional that allows you to take depreciation and offset your other income. So you guys have a huge opportunity if you are real estate investors to offset big commission years with rental property depreciation. Now let's talk about the changes in the depreciation. So last year it was 100% of that accelerated depreciation. This year for 2023, you only get 80%. So 80%
Of what?
of the depreciation, the accelerated piece. So if we use the example that I was talking about, purchase price was 435, depreciation in year one was 130,000. You're going to get 80% of that 130. That takes you to 105,000. Next year, it drops again from 80 to 60. Okay. So that drops you to about 80 grand. And then it drops to 40. That drops you to about 60 grand. Right. So it's stepping down 20% every year for the next 5 years until accelerated depreciation goes away. So just be aware of that. As far as tax planning goes, you've got 2 months to buy a house to offset your big commission year, right? Now, Kelly, if I may kind of mention what we were talking about with you, Kelly has a lot of properties. We took a look at her situation and said, hey, you know what? Even though we get a bigger bang last year, let's take a look at this year and next year and the year after, and let's build a plan that's comprehensive. And let's make sure that we mitigate your taxes, not just one time, but we do it for the next 5 years. Now, if you're in the 20% tax bracket, every dollar of depreciation is worth a whole lot more than if you're in the 10% tax bracket. So what we want to do is we want to maximize your tax bracket strategy as well and keep you in the right bracket for your income and maximize the expenses that we can take to be able to build a tax strategy plan for you.
Yeah, so the I can't even talk. The presidency has potential of changing next fall, right? With the election coming up. everyone preaches tax and what they're gonna do to the tax code. When Trump came in, he's the one that allowed this 100% accelerated depreciation. And he only was given a certain amount of years to do that, right? Which is why it sunsets in 2027. So with the election coming up, we'll find out about what's going to be happening to the code. Republicans, obviously with capitalism, they are pro tax savings, and the Democratic side, they like to kind of just spread it out over the course of years, right? So not to get political on anything, but understanding the tax code through politics, we don't know about accelerated depreciation, how it's going to play out. So while that's sunsetting in 2027, it could be brought back. Where this year, 80% accelerated depreciation, great, pace it. 60% next year, it's still decent.
So it makes sense.
Especially if you're in a higher tax bracket, right? 32% tax bracket, you're gonna get $80,000 in his situation in year one, and saving in that 32% tax bracket to drop you down to the 24% tax bracket. That's a permanent tax savings of 8%. That's huge. So having strategy for future years and understanding where you're going with your goals, right? That's a big deal. Talk about, so that's cost segregations.
Yes.
Now let's move into the 1031 side of the real estate investing world. Any questions on cost segregation? So we don't do it. There's cost segregation firms that do it. They specialize in cost segs. And they go in, a lot of people, how do they do it? My house is in Florida. So what they do is they'll assess it. They'll create the statement that shows what the cost segregation is. They have all of the tax code listed out and how it's legitimate, how it's legal, all of that. So you have comfort in it being real.
It's interesting. Let me jump on that real quick. It's interesting. Everybody says, well, this is super aggressive, right? And the answer is no, it's actually more accurate. If you think about it, right now, we're using a peanut butter spread or a blanket spread of 27.5 years for every component in your property. By doing a cost segregation, we're actually being more accurate and coming up with real useful lives of that property. And it's actually a more accurate way to do your depreciation. So there's actually less risk. Kelly?
I want to add in here. I know I've got some people online that own some properties, and I've got a number of you in here do. And the reason I asked them to come early and come right after tax day is because I want you to have the time to really take advantage of looking at an opportunity to buy real estate. I've been investing in real estate a long time and been able to use their strategies. And frankly, I got a boatload of money back this year for the first time ever. So that was really, really cool. But on top of that, the reason I'm introducing Done For You and these guys together is because you have time this year to make a difference. If you own properties in another state and they're not performing, you have time this year to swap some of them out and 1031 them. You have time working with Done For You to really make all of that happen and make it happen quick and get into the best markets there are. So I wanted you to know about it as early as possible, so you have an opportunity to make a difference this year and take advantage of that 80%.
You stole it. We're done.
Okay, no, I know you have one.
No, so we were going to go into the 1031 side of things, right? And then we were going to bring it back to how do you close on a house? You all understand. It's not super quick to be able to close on a house before the end of the year. How do you do that? A company like Done For You Real Estate, where they have these turnkey properties, they have property managers already assigned. Property managers find the tenants for you, right? They have all of that laid out. That's going to be your quick way of finding an investment property before the end of the year and getting it, someone living in it, right? Getting it active, ready to go as a rental property. You can't count it as a rental property until it's available to rent. Okay. So if you're building and doing all these things, technically it's not considered a rental until it's active and live, ready to rent. Okay. So you need to have that done before the end of the year. So time is of the essence. And going into what Kelly was talking about with the 1031s, maybe you do have a rental property that isn't performing the way that you want, or you don't like the state that it's in because of hurricanes or different things, and you want to trying to figure out how to get out of it. Doing a 1031 exchange allows you to sell the property and roll any gains that you were going to create from the sale of that house. Instead of paying taxes on it, you'll roll that house into your next investment property. So there's some details within that we can go over to make sure that it's done properly, but you take that and you take that property, that sale, you go to done for you and say, hey, we need to find some properties that we want to do a 1031 into. They'll go down that path and help you structure that to make sure it's a 1031. A 1031 intermediary will also be involved to make sure that it's done properly all through the escrow process. So there's not much that you need to do other than communicate and say, hey, I want to do a 1031 with this property I want to sell, and I'm looking for another investment property. Help me out. Let's get it done. Okay. Let's dive a little bit into what a 1031 is. Can we go for it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I wanted to say something else though. I don't remember what I wanted to say. It was important.
Oh, was
was
it?
really good. Well, let's just talk about 1031s. So when you buy a property, as we mentioned before, the best way to make money is appreciation. So let's say that we buy a property for $200,000 and it appreciates to $1 million. Okay. Now, if you were going to sell that property, you would owe tax on the gain, and the gain is calculated as the sales price minus your basis. So the basis is your original purchase price minus any depreciation. So if we did that cost segregation, right, on that $200,000 house, and we took about 30% of that on the front end, then you're going to have an extra $60,000. This could be $860,000 plus any additional depreciation depending on how long you held it. Long story short, the gain gets really big really quick. Okay. And if we try to quantify what that's going to be, if we say that your tax rate's 20%, you're looking at north of $160,000 in taxes for selling that property. What a 1031 allows you to do, and we'll jump into the requirements here, but it allows you to not make that payment and carry that basis that you had in the first property to the next property. So let's just assume, for easy math here, bought a property for 200K. We took about 50,000 of depreciation. So our basis is about 150K. We get ready to sell it for $1 million. And the gain would be the difference between those, right? 850. But instead of paying on that gain, the next property we buy, the first $1 million has a basis of 150,000. You're just carrying forward your basis from the original purchase.
So you're not creating more depreciation on that specific amount up to $1 million. Okay.
So the rule, if we want to simplify 1031s as much as possible, you've got to get just as much debt as you had on the first property, and you've got to spend more money than you're selling it for. Okay. So if you're going to do a 1031 for $1 million, you've got to buy at least $1 million of real estate. And ideally, you have the same amount of debt or more that you had in the first property, and that will allow you to defer that gain
And not pay tax at all. Okay. So now let's say, and there was actually a question that came up before this, I was talking with one of you in here, about inheritance. Inheriting a house, that property goes up in value. Now I want to sell it. What's my tax implications on that? So let's use this example of, I just deferred through a 1031. I've deferred this taxable gain. So I have $1 million property with no basis, only 150,000 of basis, right? So I'm sitting on an $850,000 tax gain if I go to sell it. Well, let's say now I pass away and my kids inherit that. My kids will inherit that at the fair market value, and they'll receive a step up in basis. Okay. So now they inherit that property at $1 million to them, and they can turn around the next day and sell it for $1 million tax-free because they received a step up in basis. Okay.
So we have a number of clients that have tried to sell the family home. We have a lot of clients in Hawaii. Sell the family home so that the kids can start their family properties, right? So in their last 5-10 years of life, they try to sell that property and then give everybody their inheritance. And that costs them 20% of whatever their inheritance would have been, because if they would have just waited until they died. Or used debt, as Mike said, debt is tax-free. So all the debt you take out, you never have to pay tax on that. So they could have taken out debt and given each of their kids a payment that allowed them to do the things they needed to, and held back enough to make the payments for the rest of their life or whatever their situation is. But that would have allowed the kids to inherit the property and not have a tax due at that point. So in our example, it would have saved $160,000. If they would have sold the property the day before they died, it costs 160. They sell it the day after they die, it costs 0 in tax.
So when you're looking at buying properties, don't buy it and put your kid on it with you. Okay? I want to give my kid something, so I'm going to put them on the title, and don't do that. Keep it in your name. Take advantage of all your tax benefits. And then they can take advantage of the cash flow, right? You can make that be their allowance as they get an extra $300 a month, because there's a little bit of cash flow on that rental property. But you own it personally through your business, but you own it. You get your tax benefits. You pass away. All of that tax depreciation, tax gain, all of that gets wiped away. The kids inherit that property tax-free, and they could turn around and sell it. If you stripped out debt, right? Because like you said, a loan is not taxable. The sale of the property will just pay off that debt remaining on it. And the remaining balance is cash to the child or the inheritor, tax-free. Okay. Once you start the 1031 chain, the train,
Yeah.
you got to keep going, right? You can do it one time and be like, all right, I'm still going to pay tax, but I got out of my situation and I'm good. If you have longevity in that and you're trying to run this 10 years, 20-year plan and you're doing 1031s, I have a client that had a little duplex, and over the course of 20 or 30 years, they have a $20 million apartment complex now because they 1031 so many times, and the appreciation, there's zero basis in that. I mean, they stripped out for some debt, but there's zero basis. So they're gonna get hit with a crazy tax bill if they ever sell. But why sell? It's cash flowing great now. They can always 1031 into something else. Here's a thought on a 1031. We talk about liquidity, okay? And what's liquid, what's not. If you have a commercial property or an apartment complex, a lot of people want to get into apartments. It's harder to sell those, as you guys are aware. There's not that many buyers for a $20 million apartment complex, but there's a whole lot of buyers for 1031ing that into 30 residential properties. And you can sell off these individual properties one by one versus having to find a buyer for one big building. Most people are looking to buy something with a 1031 that are going to pay $20 million for an apartment. So now you're looking for even more limited buyers because it's someone that has a 1031 that's looking for a 45-day turn to identify a property and buy a new property. Okay, so there's a lot of these different reasons on why you would want a commercial versus why you want residential. What's the goals for you? What's going to work for you? Okay.
We're in process right now of that client he's referring to, help them get out of larger properties because it's not going to work for generational wealth, where their grandkids are not going to be able to use their portion of that inheritance to do anything for them. They all want to be able to go to college. They all want to be able to get their own house, and getting $50,000 check is not nearly as good as getting, let's say a couple houses that they can then leverage and figure out if they want to start their own business or they want to do something else, they're gonna be able to do that. So building a strategy for every individual, depending on their goals and what they're trying to accomplish, is really what's most important.
Any questions before we go into something else?
Yep.
Do you guys do taxes for people here in Colorado?
Yeah. Yep.
You can?
Yep. I mean, prime example, Kelly.
We can do taxes for people in every state.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done taxes in almost every state. When I was at the firm, I had a company that I did tax returns for in every state but 2.
I feel like I'm being Mickey Mouse and asking this question, but how will you take care of your mileage as a realtor and write it off?
Your mileage?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, great question. The question is, how do you take advantage of as realtors drive so much, right? And so miles is a big deal. Um, ideally, you're keeping track with some kind of app or some kind of log. Um, it's hard for people to do that, right?
What's the
But
alternative?
if you're using a vehicle for business use, look at your odometer at the beginning of the year, from your oil changes, look at your odometer at the end of the year. And if you know you did some personal use driving, take 90% of it for business use. So start to, I don't want to say estimate, right? Because if you get audited, the IRS is going to want to see some type of log. The log would work if you have beginning and ending odometer, but you got to prove that that vehicle was used for business use only. And then you have a personal use vehicle as well, which I do. My wife's car that we use as a family, and then I have my vehicle that I use for work only. So there's ways of doing that, but keeping track, there's a lot of different options out there. Mileage apps that you just hit start and stop. As a business owner, you're always driving around, especially as a realtor. But I would say the difference between taking mileage or buying a vehicle. Okay, this goes back to this accelerated depreciation rules and all of that. If you bought a vehicle over 6,000 pounds, you can take 100% now in 2023, 80% of that in year one as depreciation. What's nice about depreciation on your tax return is if you're going to get approved for a loan, those loan officers, they add back depreciation to your income. So if you bought $100,000 truck, you're going to get $80,000 deduction this year in 2023. Your income went from $100,000 net income down to 20,000. You're not going to qualify for anything on a $20,000 income. They'll look at that depreciation, add it back, and look as if you made
The
$100,000.
same is true with real estate depreciation. All depreciation gets added back.
Yeah,
So I took $130,000. That does not come off when I try to go get another loan, my income.
yeah. So the question is, and some of you might be thinking this, should I buy a car and depreciate that, or should I take mileage? Year one, getting $80,000 this year, it's great. Next year, it's not great, right? You have to spread out the remaining 20,000 over the next 4 years. But if you're driving 40,000 miles, 50,000 miles as a real estate agent, which I have those in Las Vegas, they're going 50, 60,000 miles a year. I mean, you're getting, I don't know what 2023 mileage is, but it was 62 cents at the end of 2022, 62 cents on the mile. That's crazy, right? You're getting, what is that? 62, 60, 30s, 36,000, right? 37,000 of mileage expense that you get in year one, year two, year three. So now you're planning for the future and not saying, I want $80,000 this year. You can't switch from taking depreciation on a purchase to going to mileage next year. You have to ride it out for the course of that 5 year for the life of the asset. Okay. So don't think about just this year's taxes unless that's the only thing you care about, knowing next year you're going to figure something else out. But that's a strategy for you and not for somebody else, right? So however you want to operate your business, once again, ride with it. But know that there's tax implications moving forward as well. So what's best case scenario? If you had a whole bunch of income this year and you're going to be in the highest tax bracket, buy that vehicle, take $80,000, knowing you're only going to be in the 24% tax bracket moving forward, because that $30 million cabin that you sold you're not going to get another one of those, right? The whales come every now and then, so reduce your tax while you can, knowing you're going to not have that large depreciation moving forward. Let's see, we got 7 minutes left. Okay, I want to jump into just a couple more tax strategies. A lot of people online, you hear about the Augusta rule and being able to rent your own house to your business, where you can take the expense and you don't have to claim that as income. Okay, normally, if you did a self-rental, say I had a rental property and I have an office space and I wanted to create for my business, I wanted to charge rent. And I paid $2,000 a month saying, hey, I'm going to get $2,000 rent expense. Since I'm paying myself because I own the business personally, I would have to claim that rental income as $2,000 a month as rental income. Okay, that's what self-rental is. However, with this Augusta rule, they allow you to do it's 14 up to 14 days. I look at it really as once a month, 12 days. you can do what's a company event. And you can't make it up, like it has to be real. But what's market value for renting a place like this, to host an event like this, okay? And what's it gonna cost? And you're able to take that expense, and I think that really this came up through COVID of no one being able to really meet together or go to big spaces and gather. So you can look at your house and say, look, that space would have cost me $1,000 to rent. So I'm gonna take rent expense and use that in this Augusta rule. Okay, and it was gonna cost me $200 to cater food. So you're taking all of these expenses and you're paying yourself from the business and creating an expense for your business, but you don't have to claim that as income based on section 280A, 280 letter A, 280A. It's the Augusta rule. So you can go in and dive in and look into that and validate that, but you'll see that online a lot. And
Let's say that you throw a quarterly party, right? Like a holiday party, and you do it at your house and you invite some clients over. You can now charge yourself what rent is. The way you find that is you just go on Airbnb, see what a similar house would be. For that square footage, you use that number. That's totally audit proof there. And now you have an expense to invite a bunch of clients and friends over to have a holiday party.
but you get to claim a little bit more expense because you're paying that venue cost to yourself. Yep, because you're self-renting your house to your business. So you're creating a little bit more expense. So there's these strategies out there. Paying your kids from your own business through W-2s. I want to clear that up a little bit as well. The standard deduction is it's about 13 grand, 13.1 or something for 2023. So if you make, and this isn't just kids, anybody in the world, in the United States at least, if you make to $13,000 of income, a W-2 job, you don't have to file a tax return because you're under that standard deduction threshold of $13,000. So there's a W-2 issued to that Social Security number. The IRS receives the transcript of that and they see that individual made $13,000. So there's no filing requirement. Okay. So when they say, yeah, pay your kids, get this deduction, you don't have to pay taxes on that. And they don't have to pay taxes on that. It's not really just your kids, it's anybody. But you want to keep that money in the family, right? So you're not going to pay me $13,000, right? Because it's not in the family. You want to give your kids an allowance and pay them $13,000. Find jobs for them to do, right? It's not just make it up, right? It's what can they shred papers for you? Can they go and do the mail runs for you? Depending on how old they are, can they drive and do different things, post signs for you as a realtor? All of these different things that you do as a real estate agent, you can have your kids do, pay them $1,000 a month through a W-2 paycheck. Payroll taxes are being paid through through payroll. Okay. And that's what's important. It has to be W-2 income through payroll because the self-employment tax is being paid through there. If you do it through a 1099, there's no self-employment tax being withheld. So if you give your child a $13,000 1099, there was no self-employment tax that was being withheld there. So you're creating some exposure because although the standard deduction is eliminating that 13,000 of earned income, that 13,000 is still subject to the self-employment tax of 15.3%. So you still should owe that 15% of self-employment tax on your tax return, on your child's tax return, even though it's under the 13,000 threshold of standard deduction.
Yeah. So those are two different buckets. Everyone's kind of lumping them in, or if you're just listening to somebody talking, you would think, oh, there's no tax liability. There's no federal tax liability. There is self-employed tax liability on paying your kids.
Yeah. So if
So
you're
you
in
gotta
a
go
12,
through W-2.
if you're in a 12% tax bracket and you're paying your kid, but you have to pay that payroll tax through your W-2s, which is 15%, right? Did you really create tax savings by doing that? You paid in 15% on that, and you just saved yourself 12% tax bracket. Okay, so now start to look at your own situation and say,
It actually costs you 3%.
yeah, it cost you 3%. So now you look at what your tax brackets are. And then you start to back into your strategies and say, these strategies work for me, these strategies don't work for me. Okay, and that's really what we do. whether you work with us or not, we're happy to be here and help out and give you guys some nuggets and some ideas. We don't do anything special. I mean, it comes down to personality, who you want to work with. We are proactive, okay? Our goal is to work with you throughout the year, and we care about you. I don't care if you make $1 million or if you make 20, because everyone has a family, everyone has to pay for their kids and all of these different things. Taxes is taxes regardless how much you make. Okay, everyone is scared. Some people are more scared that they pay $10,000 or $1,000 than the ones that owe $200,000. And it's all because of peace of mind and where they know. So we don't do anything different than what somebody should or would do in their own tax situation, or as far as a tax preparer goes. If they know what they're doing and they understand the different rules, I can't do anything different for Kelly than somebody else could have done for Kelly. But as messy as her was, no one else would want to do it. Not joking. Hers wasn't messy. It was bringing in, she has so much businesses.
There's a lot of transactions.
Taking on a new client, I make, I don't know, like $8 an hour because of all the different inputs, making sure it matches prior year stuff. And that's really where the messiness comes, is how complex are you? It's going to take a lot of time on my end. So thanks for having us. We're right here at 12 o'clock. I love ending on time. If you got questions, happy to talk after, and we're here. So appreciate you guys.
You tried these parts.
Yeah.
So real quick, hold on just a second, guys. Thank these guys once again for coming on YouTube. Really appreciate what doing that. Kelly had mentioned this, just be mindful, guys. We have a couple more months here. I know my wife and I were trying to figure out a couple things because we're trying to get that, we want to get a rental property by the end of this year. Take advantage of those breaks. So be thinking about that for your prospects. This webinar that we did last Saturday, they mentioned it, Mike mentioned it. Anybody you refer to Done For You, you get that referral fee if they buy a property with them. And most of their clients buy 6 to 10 properties over time, and you get paid 6 to 10 times over the next 10 years, whatever. You get paid, your name is attached to them for as long as they're with Done For You. That's a great way to build up just another stream of passive income for us as agents. Okay, so think about that. Past clients, I had college buddies in Indiana on that webinar on Saturday. Family, you can do this with anybody anywhere. Okay, so many people would love to get into investment real estate. They know it's a good thing to do, they just don't know how to do it. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't think they can afford it. All that kind of stuff. We'll leave that to the professionals. I'm not a pro. That's where these guys come in. That's who they work with. The mom and pop investor who's trying to figure it out. Okay. So keep that in mind. Definitely, get in touch with these guys, talk to these guys before they go. Definitely I gotta get some tax stuff going with these guys. So, anyway, a couple quick things, guys. With this, here, hold on a second. Actually, let me just make a couple of these announcements. So Monday, we're going to Topgolf. Okay, we got 4 bays rented out there for EXP agents. Any guests, you guys are welcome to come with us as well. We're gonna have all kinds of food, drinks, everything for 5:30 to 7:30. You do need to register online. We have an Eventbrite link. It's in our workplace group. We texted it out yesterday as well. If you're a guest and you want to come, let us know. We can get you that link. You're more than welcome. Just be a good time on that on Monday night. Coming up here, 5:30 to 7:30. And then coming up November 7th, it's a Tuesday. There's an EXP regional rally. They did these back, back in the spring. We're doing another one of those. It's in Denver. Okay. Tickets are reduced right now through October 31st. They go up like $10 or something after that. But you can go on to Workplace again and see the links for that. Okay. We will have an online event similar to this, more of a business planning thing. Get ready for 2024. That's coming up on the 15th. We'll have all the details on that here soon. So any other questions at all before we go?
When is the rally?
The rally we're doing is November 7th. It's a Tuesday. Okay. 9 a.m. That's in Denver, actually. It starts at 9 a.m. Okay. But Monday night, Topgolf. We still got some room there. We want to sell that thing out, fill it up, got a lot of food. But you do need to register for that. Okay. So come join us out there on Monday. That's it, guys. Thank you very much, Kelly. Thanks for putting it together. Thank you all. Thank you.